All right, welcome inside to another edition of Alex Garrett Podcasting. You know, one of the big things that got me into this podcasting world is sports. I love talking sports. And I haven't done it in a little bit, so I want to. I want to talk about something that popped up this weekend, or this week, in college basketball. Many of you may be following, may not, may follow the big changes going on and schedule changes left and right in every sport. But did you catch Coach Krzyzewski? You know, he's the winningest coach, and he's a legend at Duke. He's a sports all-time leader in coaching wins. You know, just Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K. He happened to lose to Illinois 83-68 this past Tuesday in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. He said this after the loss.
I don't think it feels right to anybody. I mean, everyone is concerned.
What he means there is it doesn't feel right to play. It doesn't feel right to play in this COVID era. Now, at first glance, you might say, well, he's just talking about it now because he lost, and this team is a loss. It was a tough loss. And it's a program that's in a conference that now has a few teams paused, by the way, in the ACC: Virginia, Louisville, Wake Forest, and NC State. But as I told a friend of mine, I said maybe he thought, and maybe we should think of this commentary from a psychological standpoint. And that is the point Coach Krzyzewski hit home this week.
I would just like for the safety, the mental health and the physical health of our players and staff, to assess where we're at, in our country today.
And this is probably an unspoken truth about what's going on in the sports world. When you have programs turning it on and turning it off, does someone have a case? Are they're worried about getting a case? They have a case. They have to cancel because of a case. A whole program has to cancel because of a case. When you see it going on in your own conference, and when you see it going on around the country, I'm sure there's a psychological toll that's hit these players on the court. There cannot be any doubt about it. Now, 83-68, a loss to Illinois, is a big deal. However, so is the fact that some programs in each conference are playing while others aren't. I think that is a bit dysfunctional. Well, it's very dysfunctional. And I think, to be honest, it's very, very unnerving for the players themselves. I mean, they're college kids. No doubt these college kids are being human and feeling like, well, A, I don't want to get this thing. B, why am I playing when the other programs are not playing? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of psyche, and of course they're not in the classroom, they're on Zoom. It's not an easy time for any athlete, let alone a college athlete. I mean, you might be saying, well, why are you so sympathetic to them? They get scholarships. Well, because they're humans too, people. In fact, one of the biggest things that is going to come out of this, and maybe I said this before, but I'm hoping that the realization that players like Lamar Jackson, realization that, a whole football program, college football program, could get COVID, it means they're humans. It means they shouldn't have beer threw on them after a bad play or a bad call by the refs. It means let's make this gratitude for the players themselves last longer than a year. Because, it is human nature to boo the crowd. But that's one thing. But if you throw objects at a player, I don't care what level, after they've also had to deal with not catching COVID, after they've really sacrificed their health to play, to help the NCAA, to help the NBA, to help the MLB, to help these sports thrive, and I'm amazed the leagues are finding a way to do it. Don't get me wrong, and these coaches are finding a way to do it. But these are heroic efforts going on in sports right now. These are heroic efforts by the coaches to even try and schedule games right now. And I would go so far to say it's heroic of the commissioners of all these conferences and the presidents of these leagues and the NFL's commissioner and MLB commissioner, all these guys, NBA, NHL, to get games on right now. And then find a way to schedule it. We can laugh. Oh, look how embarrassing this is. It's on a Wednesday, not a Sunday. But you know what? They're finding a way to play the game. And when fans are back, with everything we've all dealt with as a country, sports athletes not excluded, we should no longer be throwing beer bottles at anybody that plays a freaking sport. Let me say that again. We should not be throwing a beer bottle at any of these players because they're human. So, yeah, I might have had originally an onset of like, well, look at this. Is Coach K making excuses? Well, he's not. There's a psychological aspect to this. So much so, even the fans themselves are weighing in. Do you know what a Marist College poll released today says, alongside the Center for Sports Communication? Oh, well, that is at Marist College. 56% of American fans believe people should not be participating in indoor team sports. Now, half these people might be gambling on the game, and even they're saying, let's not risk people's lives. Think about that. Even people that might be gambling on these games are looking at this saying, this is crazy. The cancellations are driving us nuts. The fact that these players could get COVID's driving us nuts. And they're feeling for the players themselves. Look, kids can get this thing. Kids can get this thing. And they're worried about it. As they should be. And in addition to making them play college sports or even elementary schools or youth basketball or whatever, you're then telling them, hey, you also can't go to school. You have to be on Zoom for your classes. You know, we always say, well, it's a tough time with all the kids having to juggle sports and this, and we're getting pressure from the parents. Well, this is the biggest pressure of all, staying healthy. Staying healthy, and then you add to that, you can't even be in the classroom right now. Now, I would say leave it up to the school districts and the leagues and the conferences, and leave it up to the teams. But it's amazing, 56% of fans. So I had seen a couple of people go after Coach K. Oh, isn't this funny that he said this after a loss against the Illini? You know what? On its face, it looks pretty weak. But when you hear this, let me play one more time. When you hear this,
I would just like for the safety, the mental health and the physical health of our players and staff, for their to assess where we're at, in our country today.
And remember, last year, Coach K actually did not feel that well. He had to miss time because he wasn't feeling well, actually. So he's nervous to catch it. He's no spring chicken. And again, it comes down to the bigger part of this. We aren't there in the huddle. We aren't there in the huddle of the scheduling or in the arenas, or we're not there right now to see everything. We're not there to gauge how these guys are feeling. But hearing it from the coaches themselves, the worry, it should bring us to a literal pause. And say, hey, you know what? Coaches, the best part of sports has always been that it could escape reality. It could escape us from politics. It could escape us from tragedy, because sports brings us out of tragedy. But tragedy has leaked into sports in disastrous ways. Cancellations, stress, COVID testing, all of that. And, of course, the, temperature checks before a game. I mean, look, Dez Bryant this week had to not play against the Ravens. As the Ravens against his old team, the Cowboys. Brian couldn't play because he tested positive for COVID at the field minutes before kickoff. And you might say, well, it's just another news story of a positive test, but think of the reality. As I said, this, like Pearl Harbor, is a real thing. This is not just a history textbook happening. And everybody is affected. And on that front, I should say this. Sports was affected by World War II. Ted Williams, Phil Rizzuto, Yogi Berra, a lot of these guys that left baseball to serve in the war, to serve our country, by the way, missed the game of baseball, did not get the stats they could have gotten because they served our country. So this isn't the first time sports has been affected by real life news, real happenings, I should say, by war. Pat Tillman, a former Arizona player, Cardinal, died in the line of duty. These guys are humans, people. That's why when I sat there and watched you people, well, not you people, but watch fans throw beer and everything on the field after the call against A-Rod with Arroyo, I thought to myself, man, this is disgusting. Don't these guys know there are people on the field? They're not just uniform wearers or umpire wearing people. They're not just blue. They're not just Pedro, Larry. They're people. I don't care if you chant whatever you want, although I hope you applaud every player next year when we get to go to the games. But I will start caring when fans continue to throw things on the field in frustration. After all of that, and to see that these guys are human and have lives outside the field and could get hurt if they get hit by a beer bottle, I hope that doesn't happen anymore. I hope the story of Alex Smith coming back from nearly having his leg amputated to now beating the Pittsburgh Steelers shows people these guys are human. They have lives. They are fighting to succeed every game out. Game in and game out. And then there's a very cool resource. A very cool resource for you. The Applied Sports Psychology blog. AppliedSportsPsych.org AASP blog. They wrote this back in March 19th, 2020 for athletes and coaches and parents in the sport community. To fight the mental health aspect of not being able to play, of having these cancellations, of having this uncertainty, this, as they put it, roller coaster, of having to worry about being sick and bringing it back to their parents. By the way, they have these tips. I want to go through these tips. For the specifics of the sport community, back in March, AASP recommended you talk it out. How are you feeling? Athletes have feelings too. I miss running. I miss being at the Rangers 5K. Seeing Ron Jobert and everybody there. I miss that. I miss the New York Roadrunners Club. I think they're back racing, but I haven't raced in a minute. I do miss that. But I'm talking about the athletes on a larger scale. Obviously, they say stay in touch with their coach and teammates via text, video, and social media. They actually say look for a certified mental performance consultant to find someone to meet with virtually. So to have that mental health checked on. Very interesting. They say find ways to continue engaging in your sport. Consider what's best for you right now. That's very cool. They say remember your why during all this time. Why are you training and competing in your sport? What is your goal to, once this pandemic is fully over, to still be in this? Why were you crying? I mean, there were a lot of kids crying that they missed their senior year. They're now celebrating that they can get that year back. But they said, oh my gosh, the softball's canceled and everything's canceled and, final year's canceled. It hit home for many people. It wasn't just a lockdown that people could cheer and celebrate because, oh, we're staying safe, which I think was a wrong approach. I think people forgot that these lockdowns affected actual friends of theirs' lives. I think they forgot that, those who were cheering it on. And they were cheering, let's be honest. They also say focus on your physical and mental fitness. Reach out to administration personnel within your department if you're a collegiate, Olympic, or Paralympic player. Remember, they got messed up too this year. The Olympics are now in 2021 in Tokyo. And I think this is a slap in the face. I'm so glad I'm talking about sports. I haven't talked about sports in a little bit on this podcast. But I think it's a slap in the face when you have breakdancing and surfing. Now, surfing I could see as an Olympic sport, but breakdancing? Breakdancing is extracurricular. It is not an Olympic sport. It's fun to do. But these guys who train hours to do marathons and hours to do the gymnastics and hours to be an Olympian could be upstaged by someone dancing on their head? That doesn't make sense to me. AlexG@NYC.net. AlexG@NYC.net, by the way. AlexG@NYC on my Instagram. Sleep is important too for everybody. So I would just, if you're looking for a place to go to AASP. I'm not a psychologist, but I am very encouraged that at least Coach K is talking about this from a mental standpoint. Saying, let's pause and reassess all of this. I'm very encouraged by that. And you should be too. And we should take a pause. And we should be applauding, by the way, those who aren't pausing and finding ways to make games work. I think that's awesome. I think that's important too. I think athletes that can play should play. Let's put it that way. But I don't think dogging Coach K, who, by the way, as I mentioned earlier, is the winningest coach in the sport, is the right way to go. He knows what he's talking about. These Duke players not only have to perform to be drafted to represent the Duke Blue Devils, they also have to stay healthy. And we forget that. We forget that these athletes are humans, and we shouldn't. And I hope this whole COVID pandemic helps us realize they are as human as you and I. As you and I. I'm Alex Garrett. We'll talk to you soon.